Hello. Today I would like to present my position in favor of the Nuremberg trials, the military courts created after the Second World War to judge the main leaders of the Nazi regime. In my opinion, these trials were not only justified but also necessary for justice and the creation of a new international moral order. To begin with, the Nuremberg trials were a historic moment because they set the idea that individuals can be held personally responsible for their actions, even if they are acting on behalf of a state. Before Nuremberg, many political and military leaders could hide behind the excuse of "I was just following orders." The trials made it very clear that this excuse is not acceptable when it comes to crimes such as genocide, torture, or massive extermination. This idea was revolutionary at the time, and it became a foundation for what we now know as international human rights law. Secondly, the trials were important because they followed a transparent and evidence based legal process. The Allied powers could have chosen revenge, but instead they decided to organize a fair trial with documents, testimonies, and rights for the defendants. This meant that justice was not only done but also seen to be done. Another key point is that the Nuremberg trials acted as a strong warning for future leaders who might consider committing similar atrocities. By punishing crimes against humanity, the trials sent a powerful message. Such actions will not be tolerated, no matter who commits them or where they happen. The principle later inspired the creation of the International Criminal Court and several other tribunals, such as those established for Rwanda or Yugoslavia. In this sense, Nuremberg helped build the idea that the international community has the responsibility of protecting people from massive violence. The trials also had an important moral and symbolic value. After a conflict marked by millions of deaths, the world needed a moment of justice. The victims, especially the survivors of the war, deserved to have their suffering acknowledged officially and respectfully. Nuremberg provided space for that their testimonies were recorded, preserved, and shared with the world, making sure that that history would not forget what happened. Of course, it is important to recognize that the Nuremberg trials were not perfect. Some people questioned the legality of some charges, and many criticized that only the the defeated side was judged. However, these imperfections do not take away from the overall importance of the trials. Instead, they remind us that Nuremberg was a first step, a starting point for building a fairer and more effective international justice system. And in conclusion, I support the Nuremberg trials because they represented a major step forward for justice and human rights. They showed that even the most powerful leaders cannot escape responsibility for their actions.